post-October 7th, I probably lean more towards the Emirates type models that have been floated.
Okay, all you guys, when you speak to the West, okay, Palestinians and you Zionists do it too. You have a very sneaky language. You're in favor of essentially a single unified Jewish state, and then Palestinians would be broken out into anywhere from 5 to 15 separate micronations that would all be represented by different families or different tribes that would be their own kind of things that would exist as kind of like these subsidiary or micronations within the whole coherent state of Israel that's basically ran by a Jewish majority of people.
If European nations and Western nations don't like the look of it, I don't care. Like, I'm done bending the knee to Jews are done bending the knee to Europeans. Yet we're being accused of genocide by the West. Like, we are not genociding. There is no genocide here. This is one of the most frustrating anti-Zionist talking points. You're wrong. You're categorically wrong.
Norman, would you be able to close the other? And I'm really sorry, Norman, for the delay here. It's my fault. Would you be able to close?
Oh, there we go. We hear him.
And then
You just don't have video.
Can't see you.
Fuck, he left. He's coming.
So Joseph, he's gonna stream this.
What is Joseph's position? Are you a big Netanyahu fan?
I wouldn't say big Netanyahu fan. I'd say like Uber-Zionist.
Recording in progress.
So I just started recording. Is that cool?
Yeah, you're good, dude.
That's
Whatever you want.
yeah.
All right, cool. So then if Norman joins us again, I'm gonna here, you guys can chat. I'm gonna give him a call.
Okay. Wait, did you say you're an Uber-Zionist?
So I run an organization called the Israel Advocacy Movement. You actually critiqued one of my debates before, and I don't know how you insulted me, but you definitely insulted me as being Hasbarist, propagandist, generic. I think you got bored after about 30 seconds. And
What was the video about? What were you talking about?
It was in prep for one of your debates with what's he called? His name's Rabbani.
Oh, okay. Hi, we believe you.
So has your position softened somewhat now, Stephen? Hardened? I don't know which way you'd put it. Have you moved at all over the couple of years you've been?
Pretty dug in. I feel like if anything, I'm probably gonna be more critical of Israel's actions now over the past several months. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Are you more critical than you were at the beginning? At the beginning, you were seen as white Zionist.
Yeah, well, I mean, the issue is like people are wondering like if at some point like the whole position 180s, but I mean that's not really how that works. Like I can still be critical without supporting fucking Hamas. Like,
So what is your position, Stephen?
on what?
On Israel, Gaza. You at the beginning you were really critical of Hamas, thinking that they were the main culprit behind a lot of what was going on, and now you're saying you hold Israel more accountable. What does that mean?
No, I think Hamas did October 7th. It's kind of hard to get around that. I think there's a huge level of culpability. But
what is your sentiment right now towards Netanyahu and his government saying they're going to take over Gaza?
Probably not the best, not great. But I mean, it depends on where you're coming at it from, and everybody is brain broken on this issue. So like there are people that attack parts of this where they don't even realize what they're attacking, or people that support parts of it that don't even realize what they're supporting. So I don't know. I guess we'll get into it.
I'm sorry, I'm like distracted. As you guys know, I just need to give me a minute because
You're good.
I don't want to give up.
Where is he at right now? Did he click the Zoom link?
No idea. Actually, that's a good point. Where is he at? Maybe I should go back to Riverside.
Or wait, no, he's probably not there, right?
Well, he's not here.
Well, he was here, but then he left here, right? Maybe he's restarting. You should just send him one email and say, "Hey, here's the Zoom link. We're just waiting here," and then see what he says or does, right?
Send him a couple of emails.
Just one is good. Just chill. I don't spamming is probably not going to make him.
Well, it's like 2 a.m. in Joseph's time.
Oh,
That's okay. It's okay.
that's all right, man. Killing Palestinians. That's a 24/7 job. Okay, these guys are used to staying away. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. That's unsensitive. Are you American or do you live in Israel or where are you from?
Am I American? Do I sound American?
I don't fucking know. Apparently, all of you guys come from Brooklyn, according to the Palestinians. So who knows?
Got me, yeah, no, from New York, Crown Heights.
Oh, okay, it might be.
No, born in the UK, lived near Jerusalem.
Okay, gotcha.
Moved to Israel after October the 7th.
Okay.
Why? What happened on October 7th?
What happened? The world went a bit crazy for Jews.
So what's your position, Joseph, on Netanyahu?
On Netanyahu? Gaza and Netanyahu is two different subjects. I think Hamas need to be neutralized. I can't think of any other way of doing that. So I support taking Gaza City.
Because you think that Hamas needs to be neutralized. The only way to do that is to take Gaza City, and therefore,
Yeah.
Wait, the plan's not just to occupy Gaza City. I thought it was the entirety of Gaza, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
Gaza City's the last holdout.
What? I thought Khan Yunis was the last holdout. How does the last holdout keep bouncing from top of It's all good. Don't worry. We'll figure it out eventually.
No, we're in yeah, it's kind of like the Okikoki, the in and out. But yeah.
oh my God, we were so close.
Well, hey, I mean, if he has the link, we can just argue with the two of us. It's good for my image, too, because I always have the impression of being a rabid pro-Zionist, so now I can do my...
We keep starting and stopping this. So, Joseph, you're saying that they gotta, in your view, they have to defeat Hamas. The only way to do that is to take over Gaza City, and therefore, what Netanyahu's coalition is doing today is the right thing. Is that your position?
Yeah, I don't believe there's any other way of defeating Hamas. Hamas have explicitly turned down every ceasefire and stated that they will not disarm until a Palestinian state is created with Jerusalem as its capital. And that's obviously...
Just to be super fair, not regardless of whether you agree or not, disagree, Hamas will agree to ceasefires, but they involve Hamas has to be like the continuing governing body of the Gaza Strip, right? And Israel isn't willing to acknowledge any ceasefires or any kind of peace agreement where Hamas remains in charge of the Gaza Strip, right?
Yeah, and quite understandably.
Yeah, I would agree, understandably. Yeah. But I would just say that that's what's on the table.
I'm a coexistence guy, despite being an Uber-Zionist. I'm a coexistence guy. I don't think you can coexist with radical jihadists that want to annihilate you because you're Jewish and see this entire land as Islamic Waqf.
That's fair. Do you want to wait? Are we formally starting this? Or are we?
I don't know what to do. Let me just.
Is he? Well, I mean, you've sent him emails, right?
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rejoin Riverside.
What? Are you going to see if he's in there still, or?
That's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I think that's not an unreasonable. I think there's a real chance he's there. He's there.
I mean, you can go tell him to leave, or go see if his stuff is working in there. And do you mind saying how old you are?
Not to your live stream. When we go off, I will.
Okay.
But okay. I'm old. I'm a family man.
Okay. You said you're from basically the UK. You've lived there more or less your whole life.
Yeah, entire life in the UK. Moved to Israel post October 7th, recognizing there's no future for Jews, at least at my belief, with the trajectory that the West is on. In the West.
Were you old enough to follow, like with any interest, what was going on in Israel from like 2000 to 2005, or?
Okay, so now he left. He
left.
So he was on Riverside. Well, he wasn't there, but his background was there. And then he came in, and then he left.
Okay, listen, you've emailed him the Zoom link. I would just have him, if he joins this, he joins this. Otherwise, I would stop stressing about it, because it sounds like he's figuring out his own life over there. And I don't think we can insert ourselves and help it. If he figures out how to join this, he'll join.
Yeah. Call it divine intervention.
So let's finish the train of thought that we were having with.
Well, here, let's start. Let's have a coherent starting place. I don't even know what we're talking about. Okay, I only joined this because you bullied me into fighting with Finkelstein. Okay, you bullied me, and I hated this guy, but here I am. So what are we talking about? So
what we're talking about is the fact that Joseph thinks that what Netanyahu and his coalition are doing is the right strategy and the only strategy that's appropriate, because Joseph thinks that this is non-negotiable. We have to get them out of power, and therefore taking over Gaza is the only reasonable thing to do, right?
So what maybe be worthwhile doing is maybe stepping back a bit further, and just framing why I say that and why I believe Hamas needs to be removed. So I don't think this is you're asking, was I around in 2005, 2000? I think you have to go back much further, and I'd maybe start around the 1920s when Jews first started getting slaughtered in this land.
Sure. I want to say the only reason why I was asking that is because you said that you moved in response to the October 7th stuff and you felt insecure about Jews. So I asked from a personal level from 2000 to 2005. I don't know if you're old enough to be. Yeah, that's why I asked you.
Yeah, so I got into the politics and truthfully religion later in life. Mm-hmm. I've been active for around a decade. 2014 war was when I first really became active in this space. Just quick context as to who I am. I run the Israel Advocacy Movement. Prior to that, I founded the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Prior to that, I ran an initiative bridging the the gap between Jews and Muslims to try and create greater coexistence. And so it's been quite a journey from there to Uber-Zionist, but still fundamentally believe in coexistence. But I do recognize that in this particular neck of the woods, radical Islamic fundamentalism is a real problem.
Can I ask real quick, when you say fundamentally believe in coexistence, what does coexistence mean to you?
Coexistence to me means, I'll give a real example rather than airy-fairy talk. I was in a playground the other day with my young daughter. A Muslim woman saw my daughter struggling on the swing, picked her up, wearing hijab, put her on the swing, started pushing her, took her teddy bear off and smiled. And my daughter smiled back. They had a nice, fun time in the park, as if they were very familiar, as if they were family. And it was very human. There's no reason why we can't live together. The issue with coexistence happens when you introduce things like radical Islam or Jewish fundamentalism. That's when we will potentially clash.
Sure, but I guess insofar as the political reality of Israel and the territories at the moment, because coexistence to some people is like a one-state solution where one person, one vote, and then obviously refugees enter that conversation. Some people think a two-state solution is necessary, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk past that. Yeah, when you say coexistence, what kind of coexistence?
Anyone who has Israeli citizenship, as it is today, has complete equality. I don't think there should be any sort of caste system or any differences between the rules that apply. So in Israel, as I'm sure your audience has heard a million times, Arabs are represented at every level of society, from government down to whatever menial job someone may do. Arab judges have sent Jewish prime ministers, turned presidents to jail. So that's the kind of how I believe it should be. When the issue comes to Judea and Samaria, Gaza, what do you do with larger populations if they were to be absorbed into the state? That obviously creates a very different reality. And I think pre-October 7th, I was very much two-state solution. Post-October 7th, I probably lean more towards the Emirates type models that have been floated.
Gotcha. So the Emirati model is basically, that's the one state for Israel, and then the Palestinians broken up into a bunch of smaller kind of like micro nations, basically, right?
However micro you decide to make it, I haven't put any size on how big that territory should be, how they should be broken up, but I lean more to that.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's an important consideration for the Palestinians, right?
For me personally, it's more to do with identity. I think as long as you have an identity which is founded in opposition to Zionism and it exists in place of Zionism, I think you're going to have perpetual conflict. So Palestinian as an identity, at least an Arab identity, as you know better than most, is a relatively recent phenomena. You could say it's a reaction to British colonialism. You could say it's a reaction to Zionist ambitions within the land, a combination of the two, but it is a relatively recent identity. It's defined with a British colonial name, British colonial flag, borders defined by British colonialists, and so in opposition to the Jewish state that's here. And so I that's why I'm opposed. It's not to do with how much territory Arabs control here, it's to do with the actual identity itself being in opposition to the Jewish state.
Okay. So, okay. What do you want? Okay, wait. So just to be super clear, okay? Because everybody, okay, all you guys, when you speak to the West, okay, Palestinians and you Zionists do it too. You have very sneaky language. So you're in favor of essentially a single unified Jewish state, and then Palestinians would be broken out into anywhere from 5 to 15 separate micronations that would all be represented by different families or different tribes that would be their own kind of things that would exist as kind of like these subsidiary or micronations within the whole coherent state of Israel that's basically ran by a Jewish majority of people.
I'll be super clear. I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to the solution. My overriding ambition is coexistence, as peace. It's not.
Well, but I mean, Palestinians would agree with you as well. They say, yeah, we agree coexistence is good too. That's why we should have one state, one vote. But I guess you wouldn't agree with that, right?
That's not what most Palestinians say anymore. Most Palestinians now, in almost every polling, are saying they prefer two-state solution. For years, they were opposed to two-state solution. The latest polls from Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research, Basically, all the polls are coming back. They are in favor of a two-state solution overwhelmingly post-October 7th because they've looked at what's happened to Gaza, recognizing the hope of a one-state solution in place of Israel is looking increasingly less likely.
Sure. That might be. I haven't seen the recent polls on that. Might be the case. But my guess is, I'd have to say they're phrased, because my guess is that most Palestinians would be obviously in favor of a one-state solution where 5 million Palestinians are allowed to migrate back to Israel, because that would give them a pretty massive majority over the Jewish population there, right? Which is why the refugee issue is such a contentious issue between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Right.
Completely. And the reality on the ground is Israel is the hegemony in the Middle East, and Israel is not about to do that, and
which is fair.
But very grounded in the real world. This is one of the frustrating things with this conversation: is people talk in terms that are never achievable. So they'll say things like, "You've been here, you've traveled around Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, you've seen the infrastructure, you've seen the roads, you've seen Tel Aviv." And so when people in the West talk about Jews in Tel Aviv going back to Europe, a place they probably never ever, or their ancestors ever stepped foot in, it's completely ridiculous. Israel is the most powerful army in the Middle East. There are millions of people here who are born to people who are living here and have no desire to leave here. And so I think the Palestinians, the Arabs, they see that and they're looking for a solution which elevates their position and moves towards a more peaceful solution between the two of us in some instances.
Sure. Okay. I don't think the Palestinians are ever going to agree to the Emirati solution, because that leaves them with basically nothing that I think they would have originally wanted. I would agree with you that everybody has solutions that don't seem amenable to both sides, but I feel like the Emirati is one of those solutions. But
I mean, you've been here, two-state solution. You've seen the polls from Israelis. You think that's still achievable here?
I mean, I feel like, my position has always been the problem is that both sides, in order to come to some kind of agreement, it almost certainly has to be a two-state solution. If they were to come to an agreement on a two-state solution, though, both sides would have to give things that they absolutely are unwilling to give. And I think both sides have every incentive to continue to fight, such that the incentives are not aligned for a peaceful resolution. I think that if you are a staunch Israeli, especially if you're more on the pro-Zio side, you see the expansions into the West Bank, you would be stupid to make any formal agreement with Palestinians about borders, because you can just kind of keep expanding into the West Bank, and you're like, why not? And if you're a Palestinian, right, everybody always screams 67 borders over and over again. The rest of the world is telling you that Israel is an apartheid state that's committing genocide, and everybody's going to come and bully Israel, that eventually that'll get fixed. But I don't think that is ever going to happen. But the Palestinians keep fighting for that. So yeah, I feel like the international pressure has made the conversation really toxic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I believe a peaceful resolution would have been found here years ago if it wasn't for international pressure from both quarters, from the Muslim world, from the West.
Mm-hmm. I guess with regards to the specifically, I guess with the Gaza thing. So here's my question: if somebody were to say Hamas needs to be gone from Gaza, I think that's wait, Jake is joining, rejoining. I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Are you Jake? Are you okay? Hello?
Yeah. I think I have like food poisoning, so I might be dipping out momentarily and then coming back in.
Okay, you can also just mute your thing, right?
Yeah, well, and my camera, right?
Yeah. Make sure you turn the camera off. I don't want to see that.
Are you are you like throwing up on camera?
Not on. That's why I would turn my camera off.
Do you have a bathroom you can go to?
Yeah, there's a bathroom. Yeah.
Oh, you can just mute the thing and not, because
that's what I tried doing. Then you're telling me to come back. So
no, you turn your camera. You're turning it all off. Why not just like mute your mic and go to the bathroom?
Okay.
Or you don't have to. I don't know if like messing your recording up or not. I don't know. It's okay. You're good. What?
I'm good.
Okay.
As you were saying.
Yeah. I guess my question about the Gaza thing is, so like if somebody say like Hamas can't be the governing body in Gaza, that makes sense to me. I don't think Hamas can be allowed to stay for a variety of reasons. I think that's totally fair. But then I guess my question is like, what's been happening so far in the war? Like what has been the goal, if not the eradication of Hamas? Like if everything's been getting blown up and yeah.
And how do you believe that's going? Do you believe Hamas have been? So I live here. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of the war, there were sirens constantly. You saw videos coming out of Gaza on a daily basis with those ugly red triangles above some Israeli soldiers that had been targeted by Hamas. Mm-hmm. Those videos dried up. They're far less frequent than they were. 25,000, according to plus, of their fighters have been killed. Hamas are losing control of the Strip in a major way, and that's why they're putting the kind of I mean, they refuse the ceasefire outright, and now that Netanyahu has announced that they're going to move on Gaza City, they're suddenly back at the negotiating table. Why? Because that's the last place that they have any control over, or is there any serious control? And so they've been massively depleted. They've lost a lot of their power. They've completely lost their public support. Depending on polling, it's between 5 to 12% of Gazans now support them. That's in Gaza, in the Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, and the Palestinian areas here. Support is still pretty high for Hamas, which is just crazy. But I think if you're living there and you're seeing the devastation, you allocate a lot of that blame to Hamas. However much you may not like Israel, you do see Hamas as partly responsible for the dire situation that you're living through.
Sure. So if Israel begins to occupy basically the entirety of the Gaza Strip again, I guess in your mind, how long, one, is this a strictly like a military occupation, or would you be in favor of Jews like going back to Gaza to start living again?
I would see it as a belligerent occupation. Me personally, I'm speaking for myself. I would say it as a belligerent occupation. Israel would take responsibility over the welfare of the Gazans, at least while they are the occupying power. But as Netanyahu has been explicitly clear time and time again, this is not a permanent move. This would be temporary. Smotrich wants to reintroduce Jews to places like Gush Kativ. Netanyahu is saying no, and both of them are saying that publicly, and that is a difference of opinion they both have publicly. So no, I don't believe it would be, at least for me speaking for myself, Gaza is a tiny strip of land with an awful lot of people in. It doesn't need more people in it complicating it. What it does need, anyone that remains there needs to be de-radicalized. Hamas have been in control of the education for over a decade, and there's a huge rebuilding project. I mean, according to polls, half of Gazans want to voluntarily leave. I think if they want to voluntarily leave, it's cruel to not let them leave, provided they can come back if they want to once the reconstruction has happened. But yeah,
sure. Just as you understand, a lot of that is like really scary from the Palestinian perspective, right? The idea that, and also from if half the Palestinians leave, right? Like the whole fight.
No, that's what they're saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I think it's 48% of Palestinians that live in Gaza today have said if this is again according to a Palestinian researching organization, polling organization, the Palestinian Center for Survey and Policy Research, they've explicitly told them that they would want to leave if Israel was able to facilitate their movement. I mean, just for context for people, so this is not based on who's living there long term. This is based on the fact this is a war zone. It looks like a hellscape. You've got all manner of difficulties that people face, from electricity, water, medical, food. It's just hell on earth to live there. In every other war, there have been large numbers of major war. There have been large numbers of refugees from Yemen, from Syria, from Ukraine. 6 million refugees from east of those. This is the only war that I'm aware of where the neighboring countries have locked the door. I understand why Israel doesn't allow Palestinians to move into Israel. I don't understand why Egypt doesn't allow refugees that want to flee the war to flee. So I'm talking literally about people being able to flee war. I mean, you've seen the images of Gaza. It looks like hell on earth at the moment. I would not want to. I'm a family man. I would not want my family to be living through those conditions if I were able to help them. That doesn't mean that anyone who leaves should not be able to return, but they should be able to leave a war if they want to leave a war. It seems incredibly cruel to lock the southern border.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying that the initial accusations were that this war was starting with the attempt to basically purge as many Palestinians from the Gaza Strip as possible. And so the idea of 1 million of them leaving without like a strict guarantee that they would be allowed back would seem to fulfill all of the initial.
That's not what I said.
I understand that's
So
not what you said, but like,
I
understand. But like the beginning thing, stated in the war was also that we're not going to be like kicking all these Palestinians out, right? But if it happens,
and I don't believe one Palestinian should be forcefully moved out of there. If they want, anyone who wants to stay there should be able to stay. Anyone who wants to leave should be able to leave, and anyone who wants to return should be able to return. That's my position. Now, you may say that's not the position of the Israeli government, or that's not what the Palestinian wants, but you asked what my position was, and that feels fair to me.
Sure, I understand that. Yeah, but you understand that like Palestinians, or at least the Palestinian supporters in the West, and probably Palestinians themselves, might not feel very secure in the ability to leave and come back, right? That would be a.
So you would look to put in place international guarantees that they would be able to return, but for whatever they're worth. I can't think of.
But do you think there who would Israel even work with?
So you say so? Let me flip that. Let me push that back to you then. Are you saying that Palestinians that want to leave a war zone should not be able to leave?
That want to leave a war zone should be able to leave. I don't know. I'd have to think a lot about what the structure of them leaving looks like.
I've seen a few of your debates. I know that you've got at least one child. I don't want you to expose all of it. But if you've got a child, would you want your child to live through those conditions? Difficulty getting food, difficulty getting accessing clean water, difficulty getting electricity, difficulty getting all the basic necessities, on top of the added fact there's an ongoing war between radical jihadists and the most powerful military in the Middle East. And you've seen the devastation that has been that just has engulfed your entire life. Would you, as a father, want your child to be able to leave?
So this is very hard because in the West, I have a country, I have a place that I can call my home, and I don't have to think about making these types of sacrifices ever. The obvious answer seems to be that, yeah, I think I would want my child to be able to go anywhere and to not suffer any of these hardships. That's very true. But I mean, like, arguably, the entire founding of your country was a bunch of people saying, like, fuck it, we're going to go tough it out here and see how it works. And the first few groups of people that went, it fucking sucked, right? Your first couple of batches of people that came from Eastern Russia had a really rough time, and over half of them left up until 1920. You said it yourself. There were massacres, famous ones. Hebron was one, where people went and they died. And it's not like, people were saying, oh, fuck it, we should just pack up and leave and go back to Brooklyn or go back to Europe or whatever, right? There are people that are willing to make sacrifices to maintain like territory because they feel like they have some, massive historical right to it. I don't have to make those decisions in the United States. It's not as simple as just like running away from an enemy that's attacking me. You're talking about a group of people that are willing to suicide bomb sometimes in order to fight a country. It wouldn't surprise me if these people are also willing to suicide their families for it as well.
And that's why it's voluntary, 100%. And that's why it should be optional for anyone that wants to.
Yeah, I understand, but like
doesn't want to put their children.
Yeah, I understand. I agree with you. Like on a very on a micro level, like, oh, you should obviously be able to leave a place where shit is fucked. But on a macro level, if we say that if shit gets really fucked, people should be able to leave. Well, now you've painted the perfect conditions for Israel to make a situation unlivable, and then all the people leave because they're exercising their individual freedoms to do so. And now Israel has achieved the long scale victory of like basically the ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip. Right, and we've done it the whole time while being quote unquote respectful of families. But this is like not probably a good thing to do if you're from the Palestinian or from the Arab side, right?
This is the perversion of reality, because the reality was Israel did not launch this war. This is a defensive action. Israel did not turn Gaza into the militarized fortress that it is, with a network of tunnels that dwarfs the London Underground, with booby traps in a large proportion of the buildings, turn it with command and control centers under civilian infrastructure. Hamas created the conditions. Hamas created the conflict. Hamas stole Israelis and brought them into that, forcing Israel into this place, into war. And then Hamas refused to agree to any ceasefire, or certainly make ceasefire virtually impossible. And as a consequence, there is conflict there. And so what I'm saying, given that Israel did not start this, given that Israel has gone to huge measures to minimize those civilian casualties. So you look at the pictures of the level of destruction in Gaza. The UN says 70% of the buildings. The UN says 92% of the houses.
I'm not going to if you've watched my debates on this, I'm not going to disagree on any of these finer points. I understand this. Hamas's entire goal is to get as many civilian deaths as possible. I'm not going to fight you on any of this. That's fine. Yeah. But I mean, like, this is a virtue signal. Like, at the macro, at the end of the day, if it ends up that Gaza is captured by Israel, Israel, and there's such a demographic majority that Israel can just incorporate Gaza formally into the country of Israel, and they give all the votes there to the remaining Palestinians because now they've got the demographic majority to do so. On a macro level, none of these micro arguments matter, and it just makes Israel look horrible to the rest of the world. Sometimes I feel like you guys get so caught up in making these like micro justifications for things that you forget how the rest of the world views you. And I think it's, I mean, like in the short term, I think that's an okay strategy, but 1 million people exodusing from the Gaza Strip to go, live in the Sinai or live in Egypt or go to other Arab states, like, and then Israel is probably going to reassert some kind of formal control over the Gaza Strip. That'd be my guess if there was really 1 million people left. But
Israel has been explicit from day. So I can only go on what Netanyahu's saying. I can't. If there's some dark, sinister plan that's not being shared with the general public, fine. I'm not privy to that. But his public sentiment is what I'm agreeing with. His public sentiment is Gaza will be rebuilt. Israel will not permanently occupy the Gaza Strip. This is a temporary measure to remove Hamas, to stabilize the region. There's going to be a civilian administration. This is all of what he's saying. This is what I'm endorsing. If there's some sinister plot, I don't know.
We're not talking. We don't need a sinister plot.
Similarly, if European nations and Western nations don't like the look of it, I don't care. Like, I'm done bending the knee to Jews are done bending the knee to Europeans. This is the perversity of what's happening. We're being accused of genocide when we're doing more than almost any other military, probably any military in the history of military campaigns, to minimize civilian casualties in one of the most complex battle arenas you could imagine, hugely populated, millions of people living in a tiny confined area with a militia or a terrorist force, or however you want to describe Hamas, that want to maximize casualties on both sides. And in that context, Israel has done everything it can to minimize civilian casualties, yet we're being accused of genocide by the West in some perverse twist of reality when 6 million of our people were killed by Europeans. It's almost like they're trying to atone or cleanse for the sins of their ancestors by projecting that onto us. Like, we are not genociding. There is no genocide here. It's, a bit of a tangent, but
yeah, I mean,
if Europeans judge us, Europeans can judge us. They're accusing us of genocide when we're doing more than almost any other military to minimize.
That's fine, and on a warlike level, that's fine. But like, what has Israel done to resolve the Palestinian problem since Oslo II?
So you have Olmert's offer in 2008, but basically, I mean, I don't know if you spoke to Olmert. You've probably been on panels with him.
No, yeah, we talked to him. And I know the map that Abbas had, and they contacted him later and saying that. Yeah, I'm very aware of that. I think that there has been some. Example. I think there has been effort. I think by Israel to resolve it, but like I think that Israel has been a little bit too comfortable living in this kind of like dilemma reality of like, well, we can't really do anything because we don't have anybody to negotiate against, so we're just going to continue to kind of like trudge forward like nothing is going to change. Like I look at like the Abraham Accords as being part of that. Like, oh, look, we can make agreements with all these other nations, and eventually the Palestinians are just going to kind of live with it, and who cares? And I think that's a delusional take on the region. I think that Israel just hopes that one day they, what did Rabin say? That he wishes that the Gaza Strip would just break off and sink into the ocean because it's just like it's an unsolvable problem. I think at some point, I think Israel's going to have to take a hard look and figure out like, okay, what the fuck are we going to do? We have to figure something out here. I guess in particular with the Gaza thing, like why can't the Palestinian Authority be the governing body for the Gaza Strip?
Because they have less support. I think they're on 10% support tracking in the West Bank, something like that. No, it's 21% in the West Bank, I think. Oh, no, 21% total. Across all Palestinians, the PA has 21%.
So what? So support them. Support them as Israel.
Hamas has 32. Hamas are way more, but for context for the viewers, 32% is what Keir Starmer was elected to government.
Okay, so hold on.
UK.
So just to be clear, you think that the reason why Netanyahu doesn't want the PA to govern the Gaza Strip is because he thinks that Palestinians don't support them?
I think
it's because he doesn't want a unified Palestinian government between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. That's the reason why, right? But as long as this like divide is continued to be played upon by Israel, like it's just gonna like there's gonna be another terrorist attack in the future. There's gonna be more fuck shit happening, and it's just I don't know, just like the can just gets kicked down the road, and we all pretend like nobody knows what's happening. It just seems kind of silly to me.
Do you think if there was a Palestinian state there, given that I mean, if you look at all the factions in amongst the Palestinians, would you describe any of them as moderates? Any of like from PFLP, DFLP, Fatah, Hamas? Would you consider them any of them moderates?
I think that like Fatah and the PLO are relatively, yeah.
So Fatah took part in October the 7th.
In what capacity?
In Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades were one of the fighting forces that crossed into Israel and butchered Jews.
What from the Gaza Strip, though, right? I don't think the Fatah presence in the Gaza Strip is the same as the Fatah presence in the West Bank, right?
It's the same organization.
Fatah was literally.
These
were literally the people that were.
West Bank, but the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades is the same Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades.
Sure, but Fatah was the party that was literally thrown off of rooftops when Hamas took over in the Gaza Strip, right? It's not the same. These are not the same people. If you're talking about Al-Qassam brigades or Palestinian Islamic Jihad, I'm just saying that the party.
You're saying they're not the same. I'm confused. Are you saying that Al-Aqsa Martyr brigades that took part in October the 7th are not the same Al-Aqsa Martyr brigades that's in the West Bank? Is that what you're proposing?
My knowledge is that Fatah was not an active participant in what happened in October 7th from the Gaza Strip. That's my understanding.
So I will show. Following this debate, I haven't got any to hand. I'll send you videos of Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigade fighters.
Sure, they might be, but my understanding would be that they were more working with Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They were more working with Al-Qassam brigades from Hamas. That would have been their group. That the PLO
is
as
that
a whole.
An assumption, or is that an assumption?
Let's assume. You know what? Let's even assume that it is all true. Let's just say that you're right for a second. Would you say that the entire PLO and then every constituent body of the Palestinian Authority are all the same as Hamas in the Gaza Strip?
No. I'd say there are moderates within the PLO.
Okay.
But I'd also say that the majority of Palestinians, the overwhelming majority of Palestinian factions, are not moderate.
Okay, I mean, I'm going to agree with you if you're talking about like the DFLP or the PFLP. These people are fucking insane. I would definitely agree with you there. But there has to be some, like, would you agree that the Palestinian Authority as a whole has been good for the West Bank, or do you think bad for the West Bank?
The Palestinian Authority as a whole has been... So I drive through the West Bank every single day, and I'm overtaken by Palestinians.
Wait, from where to where? Just so I'm curious.
From Jerusalem to the Gush, places like that. So the Bethlehem, that sort of area.
Okay.
So south of Jerusalem. So I do a lot of driving in that area.
Okay.
I'm overtaken by Palestinians. So these are on Israeli roads. And so Palestinians who have permits or live in Area C, etc., can have to drive on these roads. So they're mixed between Israelis and Palestinians. The Palestinian cars that overtake me on a daily basis, BMW M5s, M7s, Range Rovers, Maybachs. Like, I got overtaken by a $500,000 Maybach the other day with Palestinian plates. If you go to Ramallah, if you go to Bethlehem, if you go to Hebron, Al Khalil, if you go to these places, you go to the Palestinian cities and you see the level of affluence, the infrastructure, the building, the enterprise, you recognize that actually life for Palestinians materially is far better than it's ever been in history. Israel has a higher standard of living, but if you're in Ramallah, Rawabi, Bethlehem, etc., it's not that far away. Gaza was a different story. Gaza didn't have the same level of wealth, but I would say the PA has been good for the material conditions post-Oslo.
I would agree. I would agree with that, right? I spent a couple of days in Ramallah. Like, I don't know if you're making it sound like it's New York City. I wouldn't quite describe it as that, but like the people aren't living in squalor, right?
No,
I would agree with you
there. It's cleaner than New York, Ramallah.
Maybe, but so I think the Palestinian Authority as a whole, it seems to be the case. I think no matter how you slice it, has been popular or not popular, has been effective in the West Bank in terms of like creating some level of security stability, both for the Palestinians and for the Israelis, and for facilitating, like the kind of like the economic and infrastructural development in the West Bank. But like, I think that it's a big problem that everybody fucking hates the Palestinian Authority, right? Palestinians hate it because they think that they just work for basically Israel. The Israelis hate it for whatever fucking reason, because of the Martyr Fund or because you think they're more radical, or whatever. But like at some point, like Israel worked to create the Palestinian Authority. That structure was in place, since Oslo 1 and iterated on in Oslo 2. Like I think that the Palestinian Authority has to be enabled and empowered by Israel in order to exist as a functioning body. And I can't think of a better way than letting them also, facilitate an administration in the Gaza Strip and then giving them the funds to do so. Like, I feel like this would make them more popular with the Palestinians. It would show that they can actually represent them. Like, creating another government for the Gaza Strip, I just don't know how this is going to lead anywhere than just more terrorist attacks or whatever in the future.
You use the word government. Well, all it's been described as a civil administration. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's a working government with elections. I don't think so. And
what do you mean by that? Well, Hamas was a government, right? Would you agree with that, or would you not agree with that?
Yes, I would say they were the government of Gaza. Yeah.
Wait, but you think that what's going there next would just be, when you say just a civil administration, who would are you saying all the leaders and everything would be appointed by Israel, or?
No, they'd be appointed. Actually, genuinely, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's above my pay grade. You're inferring things that haven't been stated. So you believe this is to separate the two territories.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there could be a million reasons why it's done this way. It could be to do with de-radicalizing the population. It could be to do with controlling the education. It could be there could be a million and one different reasons why it's been proposed as a civil administration as opposed to bringing in the PA, which is definitely the white man's preferred option. That's what Europeans want. That's what the West is pushing for. It's what the West has pushed for decades. The West has not moved away from the two-state solution since 1947. That's been their go-to, and it hasn't worked. A two-state solution has not worked. It's been rejected every single time by the Arabs, every single time. Give or take a few.
I mean, I don't disagree with you there, yeah. But I mean, nobody agrees on what a one-state solution would look like either. So it's not like that's fared any better, right?
Yeah, I agree. There's no disagreement there. And that's why I'm saying I'm in support of temporarily there being a civil administration. Temporarily, Israel being in there. Long term, who knows? Genuinely,
Okay.
If I had that solution, I think if most people had that solution, they'd write books and make a lot of money.
Sure. I think that I think the solution is simple. It's just not easy, right? And that both sides have to be willing to give some stuff that they probably don't want to give. And both sides are incentivized to continue fighting. It feels like right now we're building a status quo that's just going to lead to some other attack in the future, right? You said you started getting interested around 2014. That was what, Protective Edge, right? It was what Cass led before that in 2008. It was the whole disengagement in 2005. It was, we can go back and do thing after thing after thing, and nothing is happening,
But start from the disengagement. The disengagement's the perfect example of what could happen with a two-state solution. You only need to go to Hamas's charter. I loved it when Hamas said a few years ago that they would recognize a Palestinian state on 67 borders. And the Arab world gasped and was like, you recognize the Zionist entity? And they had to put out a disclaimer saying, we're really sorry. We didn't mean that we'd recognize the Zionist entity. This was just the first step, and we would never give up.
I understand. Yeah, charters. I mean, Likud in their charter said they would never recognize a Palestinian state of any type as well, right? So, we can play the charter game. It feels like everybody's got a reason. If we want to play the games, everybody has a reason to not do anything, and then it's just going to be status quo until the next terrorist attack. That's what it feels like. I guess if Israel wants to do that, then that's your guys' choice. But that's what's set up for right now, is status quo until the next terrorist attack.
I would push back. So you go to the Hamas charter, and it says there is no solution for the Palestinian question except jihad. This is Islamic Waqf. This is holy land, al-Ard al-Muqaddasa, and they will fight the kuffar. They will fight the kuffar until they liberate all of the Islamic land, and there's no way around that. And you look at all of the nations.
I think there can be a way around that. I think it can happen. I think it might seem impossible, but Egypt led the entire Arab world in war after war after war against Israel, and eventually they made peace. I don't know why it's impossible.
I don't know if you spent much the current regime. Yes, Sisi. In previous regimes, yes, there's been peace between the. Have you spoke to many Egyptians?
No, but
ordinary Egyptians.
Literally, that's fine that they dislike it, but when the Muslim Brotherhood took over in 2011, 2013, they even sent a letter saying we got a peace agreement, we're chill, we're cool. If they're the ones in charge and they didn't fucking invade Israel, I feel like the peace agreement is pretty stable at this point.
And you trust Ikhwan Muslimin?
It's been 14 years. I haven't seen an invasion from Egypt into Israel yet.
No,
right?
but Ikhwan Muslimin were thrown in jail and banned, and that's the whole reason why they don't let the Gazans into Israel, because Hamas is Ikhwan Muslimin, is the Muslim Brotherhood.
Sure, I understand they have there's a whole host of reasons why Egypt might not want to host, from humanitarian stuff to not feeling great about the Muslim Brotherhood to other reasons in the Arab world for why you wouldn't want a bunch of Palestinians to abandon their land. I'm just saying that we can there's so many micro issues that you can be correct on, and I'm not even if I was arguing with Finkelstein right now, I'd probably be echoing a lot of your sentiment. I'm just saying that nobody seems to be willing to take a step to actually resolve any of these issues. People are just comfortable winning on their micro arguments.
Israel took so many steps. The Peel Commission offered the Palestinians, or the Arabs, because it wasn't the Peel Commission was pre-Palestinians taking on the identity, but it offered the Arabs, I think it was 96% of the land, or 94, one of the two, and the Arabs said no, because the Jews would have Haifa. It's like Jews being in 4 or 6% of the land was too much.
Sure, but I mean, like, this is 1936, right? We're way past that at this point. So I don't know what the relevance is there.
No, but I think that's the reality, and that's why you've actually seen the Palestinians move towards a two-state solution for the first time, because they realize they've been failed by their leaders. The Palestinians have been cursed with the worst leaders you could imagine, consistently.
I agree.
Consistently.
Yeah.
And they now recognize how hopeless their situation is. And hopeless doesn't do it justice. I mean, Gaza is hell on earth. I'm not one of these Zionists that's screaming, like turn it into a car. But I look there, I see an image of a dead child. I'm a father. It's heartbreaking to see the images that come out of Gaza. And the sooner that this conflict ends, like, please God, in my lifetime, I see it. But there is...
So I'm just curious. Do you think there's a world where there's a civil administration in Gaza, and then all the people magically become de-radicalized somehow, and then what's next?
I think the de-radicalized. So again, I'm not a solutions guy. I literally focus very much on the history. I focus very much on short-term solutions. Living together, I meet with Palestinians on a daily basis almost. I think that the key to unlocking Gaza, because Gaza, what people don't understand, they see the Palestinians as a homogenous group, and a Palestinian living in Gaza has been subject to a different education, a different living environment, almost a different culture to an Arab who's living in Ramallah, a Palestinian who's living in Ramallah. Very, very different people. I mean, even with the clan-based system, at times you won't have marriage between different clans. There can be hostility between clans, alliances between clans amongst the Palestinians. The national identity of the Palestinians is a relatively modern thing. And in Gaza, which has a different culture to the West Bank, there's been a huge radicalization of the problem. As an example, it's one of the most anti-Semitic places on earth.
Sure.
One of the most.
I think you have to be careful. I understand when you say relatively recent thing, right? Probably like 1910s, 1920s with the Mufta and everything, and the formation of the Palestinian
1920s.
Sure, yeah.
1920s.
I understand, but like you could also argue that to some extent, like the Jewish ethnic identity is similar, right? That I don't know if Ashkenazis that lived in Europe would have identified along the same ethnic lines as Mizrahi or whatever from Arab countries.
Yeah, okay. With all due respect, they did. That's how we traded. We travel around the world speaking Hebrew. We read the same books. We prayed.
First of all, hold on. No, that's not true. Okay, they had to fight for Hebrew to even be the national language of.
Bro, this is one of the most frustrating anti-Zionist talking points. You're wrong. You're categorically wrong. Hebrew was the language of the religion. So any religious books, most religious books were written in Hebrew. Some were written in so for instance, a rabbi like Maimonides, who was the 1200s, he wrote some books in Arabic, some books in Hebrew. But Hebrew was the language of prayer. Hebrew was the language of the synagogue. Hebrew never died. It wasn't a spoken language, but it was a language we had in common.
I understand, but learning to do Hebrew for bar mitzvah is not the same as your day-to-day conversations with people in the countries you lived in, right?
With all due respect, you're mistaken on this. So Jews were highly literate compared to other populations. They wrote in it wasn't your experience of Judaism is basically secular Americans with a sprinkling of a Jewish identity on top of them. They've been assimilated and absorbed by American culture. Most American Jews' religion isn't Judaism, it's progressivism, which they wrap into Judaism.
Hold on, I'm not even thinking about Jews. You tell me, you're curious. Do you think that Jews living in like Eastern Russia, like the late 19th century, these Jews would have felt like they belonged to the same culture as Jews living in all across the Ottoman Empire?
So for instance, of course, when Jewish travelers like Benjamin of Tudela would go to different Jewish communities, they would speak to each other in Hebrew. That would be how they'd communicate. They would see each other as brother. You would intermarry with these people. There was no issue of an Ashkenazi Jew in Poland, if they wanted to, if they were from an affluent trading family, whatever, marrying a Jewish woman from a Syrian family. So, for instance, I pray in a synagogue, I used to when I lived in the UK, of Jews from Yemen, Adani Jews.
So you're saying that they're
Aden was a trader. Just hear me out.
Sure.
Aden was a trading port, and so if you speak to the people who live there, they all have mixed ancestry. They'll say, my great grandfather was Ashkenazi, my great great grandfather was Yemeni, my other one was Iraqi, and so your portrayal of Jews as only recently having a central identity is absolutely absurd. The thing you're describing is Westerners pushing your constructs, your categorization onto our religion. We see ourselves as Am Yisrael, Bnei Israel, the children.
My
of
understanding
Israel,
was in the 50s and 60s that there had to be a huge push in Israel to integrate all of the Arab Israelis, or all of the Arabs that had basically fled to Israel post the war.
First, they didn't call themselves Arabs. They're Jews.
Sure, I understand they might have called themselves differently, but there was a vastly different culture from the Western European Jews that initially were kind of like the founding stock of Israel versus
So
all of the Jews from
Israel were socialist, atheist, quite detached from their Jewish identity in many instances. The Jews from the Middle East and North Africa were much more rooted in their religious traditions, much more religious in a traditional Jewish identity.
Sure, that's fine, but they didn't have a country to go to until those secular Jews were the ones that forged the country.
I'm not against the secular Jews.
Sure.
I'm saying you can't measure what Jewish identity by assimilated Jews. So they were socialists, they were anarchists, they were anything but religious Jews. And traditional religious Jews.
Sure.
I'm talking about Jews historically. A Jew from Yemen saw himself in the same way as belonging to the same people as a Jew from Poland. We have letters of correspondence. They'd write, for instance, you'd write letters, Shailot and Teshuvot, questions and answers to rabbis. The rabbis of Babylon would receive letters from Jews around the world. The rabbis of Jerusalem would receive letters from rabbis around the world, and they would answer the religious questions because they were one people. We were one people.
Okay,
sorry, this
you know
is
what?
a
I'll take your
tangent, but you're wrong
sure.
on it.
Okay, I'll take your word for it for now. Maybe I'll do some more reading on this. My understanding is there's a
happy to come back and debate you on this anytime once you've done that reading.
Yeah, sure.
It's one of the frustrations where people...
That's fine. It can be frustrating for you. Okay, I'm glad to make you a little frustrated. You're not deleting the Palestinian identity now, regardless of how much of a construct you think it is, from the 20s, 30s onwards. Like, that's not going anywhere, right?
I've used the Palestinian identity. I've used that term repeatedly to describe them. They today describe themselves as Palestinian.
Sure.
But Palestinian as an identity is a reaction to Zionism.
That's fine, but that's not going to get you any further in. That's not going to get you any further in getting rid of it or in trying to.
What is Palestine? What is Palestine? Describe it.
I mean, obviously, I need more context to describe that. What do you mean?
Okay. So you're using the term Palestinian based on, I assume, Palestine. Yeah?
No, I'm using it based on a collection of people that right now, for whatever reason, valid or invalid, all seem to say they share.
So when they say free Palestine, what do they mean?
It depends on who you talk to. Some people think that it means freeing the whole Levant of all Jewish people and sending them back to Europe. Other people, I mean, it really depends. What do you mean?
Is it speaking about a geographical territory?
When they say from the river to the sea, or from the free Palestine?
When they say Palestine, free Palestine, from the river to the sea,
I think they're speaking Palestine. To, yeah, they're referring to a particular place, right? Yeah. Probably like the British mandatory Palestine area, and maybe a little bit further north, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, so Western British mandatory Palestine, Eastern British mandatory Palestine being Jordan. So they're talking about Western British mandatory Palestine, which they call Palestine. Yeah?
Sure, yeah.
And what's in that territory today? Israel.
A bunch of people, yeah.
And when you see any of them, have you ever, straight question, honest answer, have you ever seen any Palestinian organization represent their country, Palestine, when they're calling themselves the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign? Have you ever seen them represent that territory as anything other than Western British mandatory Palestine?
Generally, no.
I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen anyone represented as Gaza and the West Bank. And that's the issue. So my issue is not with people calling themselves Palestinian. My issue is that as long as that identity exists, and as long as the Palestinians are asking for a Palestinian state in place of a Jewish state, I think we have perpetual war. So if you were to grant a two-state solution, you would just be at the 2005 disengagement again. Radical Islam would still be here. We would just be another Yazidi. We would be another population facing onslaught from extremist forces.
I
As long as the
don't.
identity exists.
I'm not going to fight you on these micro issues. Again, if you heard my content, I'm going to agree with you on
I
most of
didn't
these
think
micro
that's micro,
issues.
okay.
Well, no, when I say micro issues, I mean like individually in a lot of these things. Yeah, I'm not going to say like some people pretend that the Palestinian identity existed for back in like 500 plus years or whatever. Obviously, I don't believe in any of that. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, like you can be right on all these small issues, but all these are being used to stave off like any kind of real solution to the problem. Like you're not going to be able to talk your way into like we can just debate them into the Emirati solution. That's never happening, right? Or we can debate them into like 500,000 leaving or half the Gaza.
Do you speak to many when you came here? Did you speak to any of the Palestinian clans?
I mean, I spoke to Palestinians, but you said it earlier, and it's true. A lot of people are very different, right? I spoke to one. I wish I could remember the name. Like, I've spoken to Palestinians that are the most pro-rabid Zionist people ever. I spoke to a lot of younger Palestinians that lived in Israel proper. I spoke to like the Palestinians, like a few that I spoke to in like the H1 area, the Jewish area of like Hebron, is going to be a lot different than the Palestinians that I spoke to. I spoke to. Oh God, what the fuck is the guy's name? I don't remember. Doctor guy, Mustafa Barghouti. Yeah, I spoke to him. He's a very, very, very anti-Israel Palestinian, political leader. Like, yeah, I've spoken to a lot. Ahmed Tibi, I think, in the Knesset. But all of these people all have different opinions and ideas and everything about what a unified state should look like. The same with like a lot of the Israelis too, right? I spoke with, a guy who was a big commander in Kogat. I spoke to a lady who worked a lot with Bet Salem, right? Who you're going to massively disagree with. I spoke to a couple of Haaretz journalists, and then I spoke, so everybody in this region has different opinions and ideas about everything. But I'm just saying, or maybe you don't care. I don't care. At the end of the day, I'm just American. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really influence me that much, or it doesn't bother me that much whether everybody nukes themselves or not.
It's just views.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, truly, I'm being honest, though. At least I'll be honest. The pro-Palestinians are pretending like their lives are at stake, but they're not. It's all views for everybody. I'm just saying that it seems like right now Israel is just going to be on a road to maintain the status quo, and then I don't see how you don't see that like another October 7th is just going to happen again in the future, unless like a real solution is presented.
I think
it's just going to
October 7th. We both agree there should be a real solution.
Mm-hmm.
I think another October 7th is more likely if you create the same conditions that existed before October the 7th, which is more autonomy for the Palestinians. So if you have a Palestinian state that borders Israel, that borders Jerusalem, that not just borders Jerusalem, that borders Masjid al-Aqsa, you're going to have perpetual conflict because it's religious. This is a religious war. Unfortunately.
If this is a religious war, how do you reconcile the fact that there wasn't a massive uprising of Palestinian Israeli citizens throughout Israel, or that there wasn't a massive uprising between all the Palestinians in the West Bank? Like it seemed like they were relatively chill after, like when October 7th happened. Like it seems to be there's some fundamental difference between these groups of Palestinians. How do you explain what's the difference between Palestinian Israelis, Palestinians in the West Bank, and then the Palestinians that live in the Gaza Strip?
I think that comes down to what they're actually capable of. Like Hamas were expecting Hezbollah to launch from the north, and they didn't.
We're not talking about Hezbollah. We're just talking about Palestinians.
No, I know you're not.
Yeah.
I'm giving that as an example.
But I'm saying like they're all like Muslims more or less, right? Like they're all the same religion. But so what's?
But it determines how much power you have. It determines, and it's that all Muslims are not the same. So Hamas. And this particular streamer, so if you go back to Al-Kaf al-Aswad, which was Izzeddin al-Qassam, who Hamas see themselves as a continuation of, who were the first, I think they were like the proto-ISIS, the proto-Daesh, the proto-Islamic terrorist organization. Basically, they were in the north of Israel. The guy who founded it, Izzeddin al-Qassam, who the militant wing of Hamas are named after, was a Syrian who moved down to northern Israel. He got a fatwa from a sheikh in Syria called Hassani to murder Jews. And so they set up little cells, 5 people, and they went around and they butchered Jews. And this is who Hamas inherited their ideology from. And I believe many of the jihadist groups throughout the world who are inspired by Muslim Brotherhood, I mean, Hamas literally say in their
I don't
charter,
like the history arguments are not relevant. Like the PLO started as a terrorist organization.
And still has a terrorist wing.
But the PLO, led by Abbas, is significantly different than the PLO of the past. Not Gaddafi. Led by Arafat, right? Like these are
the PLO are a completely different ideology.
Sure, no, but I'm just saying that I
Hamas.
wouldn't look at the founding of the PLO in the 60s and then point to that's what the PLO is like today. I understand that in the past shit is fucked, okay? I'm not arguing against any of that. Shit is fucked, bro. I've never argued against any of this. These people are crazy, okay? You've got the whole hijacking planes and shit in other countries. The history of like a lot of the Palestinian groups is fucking unhinged. I'm not going to say anything different. One thing I don't like is if because you go back to this religious argument sometimes, but then you also say that not all Muslims are the same. I agree with that. I feel like the Muslims can change.
I think religion is something that can be interpreted for good or bad. So if you go to the Bible, I think I've watched a few of your streams, but I'm not super familiar. But I think you were religious growing up, or
I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, all that.
And so you'll be familiar with problematic verses from the Bible. So a person can read some of those verses and take the Judaism or Christianity to a dark place. Islam is no different. In Islam, it says, when you meet the kuffar, or those that don't believe in Allah, strike their throats. On October the 7th, that's exactly what Hamas did. They crossed into Israel and they tried beheading Thai workers. They beheaded IDF soldiers. They struck the neck of the kuffar. Now, you can get ISIS, who will read that book. You can get Hamas that will read the Quran and they'll take it there. You get another Muslim who reads it. They focus on giving sadaqah, charity. They focus on doing good deeds, looking after the widow and the orphan. And they're reading the same book and taking it to a different place. So yes, absolutely, there are different interpretations of Islam. And I think nations that get this more than anyone else are Muslim nations. There's a reason why the Emiratis have banned Ikhwan Muslimin, the Muslim Brotherhood, who Hamas are born out of, because they pose an existential threat to these regimes, because they are the only likely force that will topple them. And Israel is no different. Israel faces a very real threat from these jihadist regimes that want to establish the Khilafah, the Caliphate. And so it does come back to religion, it does come back to Islam, but that's not to say everyone who reads the Quran and the Hadith interpret it the same way. There's hugely different interpretations. I agree with that.
I guess
dealing
like
with a very particular problem in this region.
Sure. So for all my reading, this is something that made me more sad than anything. Maybe it's because I didn't reach modern history. Okay. The biggest surprising thing to me in going to Israel that I actually had no fucking idea about, and it's shameful, is I didn't realize that in Israel proper, 20% of your, since 2 million people are Arab Palestinians. I had no idea about that. I assumed it would have been like 50,000.
Some of them don't consider themselves Palestinian.
Sure, so and maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I'm saying they're not. They're Arabs. That's crazy to me. In the United States, we feel like if we let like 20 Arabs in, they're going to fucking literally suicide bomb everything we have. But I mean, if any place in the world should be prone to jihadist terrorism, I would imagine it would be fucking Israel with Arabs living in their country. I mean, but like you have that. You have that population. For the most part, they aren't committing these insane terrorist attacks constantly. You don't have a third intifada or whatever after the after the October 7th attacks. I guess it feels sad to hear that if you feel like this issue is like a religiously intractable one, or that I don't know. I sometimes it sounds like you're saying like the Muslims are different. Sometimes you're pointing to this jihad thing. You're saying they're different interpretations. There must be some way that a unified government can be represented for the West Bank and the Gaza Strip in a way that Israel can negotiate with them and figure out some long-term solution. And I just keep kicking the can down the road.
So I think it's the key is education. I think the difference between an Arab living in Israel and an Arab living in Gaza is who controls the education and what they're taught. So if you move to Gaza, the education was either provided by Hamas or by UNRWA, with a little bit of private education. Both Hamas and UNRWA taught the principal message they taught to their students was, you are refugees and you have a right to return to your home. Where's your home? There. How can you stop being a refugee? You can't stop being a refugee. The only way that you can stop being a refugee is to die. If you have children, they're also refugees. If they have children, they're also refugees. You may be living in a land that you call Palestine, but you're still a refugee. And it's an inherited status which you can't get rid of. And the only way you get rid of it is through death or return.
Sure. So
and
like in terms of like
that was being taught.
Yeah, in terms of actionable stuff that needs to stop, I think the refugee thing is super fabricated and super cringe, right? Like that there are Jordanian people that were all granted citizenship, when Jordan first conquered the West Bank, and somehow those people are also refugees, and like the refugee issue I think is super cringe and needs to go away. I mean, except for in cases where people are legitimately like driven from their homes. I'm not going to disagree with you there, but I don't know. I have to leave in about
So
8 minutes, so we can talk about whatever you want to go. I just sometimes I hear it's frustrating to hear both sides can make decent arguments for their positions. Like, oh yeah, I totally get what you're saying, but then it's like at the end of the day, there's just going to be no. I don't know. You said you're married. Like, I'm sure there are issues where between husband and wife, where both of you have a huge fight, and both of you are right, like on some part. But at the end of the day, like you have to come together and be like, okay, maybe I messed up here, maybe you messed up there, and like we both might have good points, but like there has to be some reconciliation process. Otherwise, it just continues indefinitely, and that's where it feels like the direction is right now. That's my feeling.
I don't want to use my marriage as the moment
never
because
right.
I fold every time and I apologize every single time.
Okay, sure.
So I would just concede and I'd leave.
I guess it feels like the status quo is not going to work, and a civil administration there feels more status quo. That's what it feels like, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, guys, this was fantastic. I'm glad we made this work despite not everyone being here. Sorry I had to go vomit during this. I feel better now, though.
Jesus.
It's okay. It was nothing you were saying.
We hadn't said it. You just started. Yeah.
Wait, what did you say?
I was just saying we hadn't said anything. You started vomiting before we got into it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel better now. Okay, so thanks, guys. Sorry that this didn't. We weren't able to get Norman. I don't know what happened. So,
do you have any final questions or thoughts, Jake?
No, I don't actually. I don't have any. I mean, what do you think should happen right now, Stephen? No one thinks. What should Israel be doing right now? What do you think is the best solution?
Well, I mean, the big issue is that Israel likes it, but Israel no longer has any constraints from the U.S., so they basically can do whatever they want. I think that I'm not trying to claim there's like some insidious master plan secret thing, but like Netanyahu would probably, with his current least government coalition, if you look at people like Ben-Gvir, if you look at people like
Smotrich.
Smotrich.
I remember that name.
Yeah, these guys probably want more than what's on the table right now. And if your international restraint is gone, there's a domestic situation in Israel which also restrains their political movement. But I don't know what that looks like right now because I just haven't followed any domestic Israeli politics in like a year, so I don't know what that looks like right now. I think that the scary thing for me, if I was Israeli, the scary thing for me would be causing so much chaos with the Palestinians that Israel forces other Arab leaders that have been relatively on board and aligned with the nation's interests. If it starts forcing Arab leaders to flip their position, that would be really scary for Israel. Like, I think a lot of Arab people across the Middle East are not as happy with the Palestinian situation, but the leadership is kind of like, fuck it, we're done with all this fighting bullshit. We kind of want to like continue on in this direction. But if the situation becomes dire enough that some leadership has to start flipping, I think that would be a really scary spot for Israel to be in. Yeah.
You know what I wonder, Joseph, is Israel's been dominant in Lebanon, and they had things turn out their way in Syria and Iran. So why for Israel's sake, why not end the war now? Like what really is there to gain? And or I guess the better question to ask is like, look at how much they're losing. So just with Saudi Arabia, forget about it. Like the whole world's pissed off at Israel, including Israelis.
What the Arab world, and I'm talking about the leadership, say publicly is not the same as what they say behind closed doors. And so I'm not, on a person individually, I could be wrong. I'm not concerned about losing the Abraham Accords or anything like that. I think my concern is much more to do with actual humanitarian crisis. What could the going south for me is not what's the cost of Israelis. The going south to me is we already have a dire humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, and further conflict risks worse things happening there. And for the sake of the people living there, I think that's a much worse thing. I think Israel is... Yeah, sorry. What was the question? I lost my chain of thought there.
Isn't it like if Israel's looking out for their best interest, wouldn't Israel want to end the war for their best interest?
So no, because the issue you're going to face is in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 4 years' time, Hamas's charter hasn't changed. They believe the only solution to this conflict is violent jihad against Israel. So if Hamas is still there, Hamas is still in Gaza City, Hamas is still in Gaza, then all that's going to happen is over time, they will rebuild, rearm and launch the next wave of attacks. They've said again and again they're going to do October the 7th again and again and again. This is what they've explicitly told us. It's what their charter says. It's what, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Hajamin al-Husseini, whether it's Izzeddin al-Qassam, they've been doing it for 100 years. It's not going to change now if we suddenly stop. I think the only way to stop this kind of violence is to de-radicalize the Gaza Strip, to remove Hamas leadership, and to bring in moderate, personally believe, moderate forces like the Emiratis, etc., to help with that reconstruction.
All right. With that, I mean, it's 5 a.m. your time, Joseph, or 3 a.m. your time. Let's, let's call it. I appreciate you guys.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks. I appreciate the conversation. It's been fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
sorry, I wasn't Norman Finkelstein.
Yeah, no problem. Stay safe. Be careful, Jake. I hope you get over your stomach flu. And yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
God bless.
Jesus. My Emiratis solution.